Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, and China. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful November the 8th, 2019. Guando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I'm all mesmerized and confused. Right now I'm on the 4th day of college football this week, and we only gotten to Friday, and all the big games are not until tomorrow.
Yeah, not until tomorrow. It's almost like Groundhog Day. Didn't I see football yesterday and then tonight again, and especially on this weekend? But that's why we love the sports games so much. It's all fair. I'm telling you, a lot of good things happening. Not only do we have Veterans Day coming up on Monday, a lot of good old boys are celebrating it today, Big C. Really, really appreciate all of our veterans. A lot of good things happening in basketball, as well as the high school Big C's Friday Night Lights. College football is really big, and of course, NFL is coming. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, just tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing, and really appreciate the way things are going. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV, Fire TVs, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I know we have this huge celebrations. It seems like all the media is doing it, for especially today, and some even yesterday. Veterans Day is coming up, and we've been giving out this National Suicide Hotline for veterans, military veterans, and also civilians that need help. You brought it to my attention several months ago, and people can call that number, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or they can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, why is that so important to you?
Well, when we think about the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, and it was mainly started for veterans who go through so many horrific times during their service, their tour of duties, Charlton. And, you know, the country and everybody else want to celebrate Veterans Day just one day of the week, of the year.
Yeah.
And say that's the only time we should pay homage to our great veterans of the United States, Charlton. No, it needs to be paid every day. But even more important, Charlton, attention needs to be paid to these veterans every day, Charlton, because they've gone through so much horrific times in their lives when they have to go to battle, even just going through basic training, Charlton. It's not an everyday routine. And so many of these people, once they leave the military, Charlton, and they leave that brotherhood, it's like in sports. When players get released from teams or cut from teams, or as you often talk about, you know, some players play their final high school game. They don't have places to turn to, Charlton, because that camaraderie that they had with hundreds of other soldiers, Charlton, on a daily basis is no longer there.
Gone,
They've been turned out on their own and told to fend for themselves, Charlton, and they don't have that support base. And we need to find a way to stem the suicide in this country, especially among the veterans. And everybody, it's a horrific thing when it occurs, Charlton. But for people who have served our country so admirably, who gave their all, who sacrificed everything they had, walked away from their families to protect the families of others, Charlton. We need to find a way to protect their lives, Charlton, to find a way to help them out mentally in this country. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is one of those steps to do that.
And I love giving out that number, 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255, that's 838-255. I know my father, he served in the Air Force. I also have a brother that served in the military, in the Army, and just I have a nephew that serves in the Marines. And you know, it's personal when you know that you know the person. I know a lot of the TV networks and radio. It's nice to see that people, you know, step up to the plate. But sometimes you feed a baby every day, not just one day or over the weekend. It'd be nice if we put that number out there. every day for a lot of people to just reach out and get some help. Big C, I appreciate that very much. I want to get into Big C's Friday Night Lights. I know, as you mentioned, Big C, there's a lot of times when people look forward to the big game and they wonder, will they go on to the next level? A lot of kids are out trying to make certain teams. Don't let that team define who you are. Life goes on after that sport, Big C. I want to get into Big C's top 10 high school football programs. Number 1, Mater Dei Santa Ana, California. Number 2, St. John Bosco, Bellflower, California. Number 3, Duncanville, Texas, followed by number 4, St. Francis Academy of Maryland. Number 5, St. Thomas Aquinas of Florida. Big C, there's a lot of talk about Deion Sanders coming back to coach Florida State. Well, there's a lot of football players that helped coach St. Thomas Aquinas out of Florida. That's not much of a leap to go from that to the college level. At some point in time, every coach in college was either a player or a coach at some level. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think one of the things about Deion Sanders being mentioned as a potential coach down at Florida State, Charlton, is that his ties to the community.
Yeah.
But when you look at college coaches today, Charlton, they're not really coaches. They are CEOs.
Yeah.
You go out and you hire a staff to complete all the daily tasks. You give somebody in charge of the offense, of the defense, of the special teams.
Yep.
And everybody has a recruiting staff, Charlton, on their college program.
Yeah.
A head coach is a CEO. He's the guy going out there hobnobbing with the boosters. He's speaking at speaking engagements, Charlton, does TV appearances here and there. But he's not out there driving the forces every day like you see on high school coaches.
Right.
So these college coaches at these big-time programs, if you bring in a guy like Deion Sanders, what do you have to lose?
Yeah.
You know he's going to get guys who want to be on his staff. I mean, he's participating with his son down in Texas.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great move, and if it's successful, think about how many more doors it's going to open for young potential coaches, Charlton, instead of recycling all these old guys year after year.
I remember T. Martin when he helped Tennessee win a national championship, the Volunteers. He was a great offensive coordinator at the University of Southern California, helped them win Rose Bowl. And people say, well, why would an athlete be able to coach? Well, it's been all over the sports universe, Big C. It wouldn't be the first time. Also, you cannot say that anybody that has that Florida legacy would not want to at least listen to him. Listening is the first part of recruiting. Number 6, St. Louis, Honolulu, Hawaii. Number 7, Lakeland, Florida. Number 8, Katy, Texas. Number 9, North Shore of Texas. And number 10, De La Salle of Concord, California. That's Big C's Friday Night Lights Top 10. Just our opinion. I always love to give this message. A lot of high schools all over the country, Big C, they've started what's called their section playoffs or their state playoffs. I always want to tell kids, never let a coach or a teammate dictate what your future will be like, whether you're on their team or not, whether you make an all-star team or not. Big C, why is that so important? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, mentorship through parenting is the number one thing. I mean, when you think about high school football, less than 1% of the players that play high school football will ever make it to pro football, Charlton. So much pressure is put on these young people to succeed. A lot of people are looking at them as a lifeline, as a 401k plan, Charlton, doing everything they can to push these kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids, when they don't be successful and don't make it to that NFL level, Charlton, these are a lot of those kids you end up needing that National Suicide Prevention Hotline number 4.
Yeah, sometimes kids can get on the wrong side of the tracks just because of the affiliation and that peer pressure. Well, those peer pressure, they're not going to feed you when you're hungry. Make sure you have a strong parental group. If not, at least someone you can look up to. So Big C's Friday Night Lights, I wish everybody the best. I hope to always give this message. Jesus said, if you love me, feed my sheep. Well, you feed sheep by not letting people do anything foolish. Please do not drink and drive. You have your whole life ahead of you. Big C, that make any sense? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, everybody has an opportunity for a great life, regardless of the path that you've grown up in. It's about, as you said, peer pressure. We all know what's right and wrong in society these days, Charlton, and you can't be weak and vulnerable to other people saying, especially the peer pressure.
Yeah, you got to be the one. The buck stops with you. Always make good choices. I want to get in also to Big C's Black College Football, just going over some of the top teams, just like ranking in the blue blood conferences. Everybody has their opinion, who's number one, etc. But I just want to acknowledge some of the top programs in the HBCs. I know you really don't hear about it on the other programs. We heard a lot of grandstanding on week one, even going out to programs in the part of the HBCs. but you don't hear it anymore in the motherships. But I want to bring it up, Big C's top 10 historical black college football programs. Florida A&M, followed by Alcorn State, North Carolina A&T, South Carolina State, and then Big C, Bethune-Cookman coming in at number 5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about these historical black colleges, Charlton, and what they've meant to so many communities. When African-American athletes weren't able to attend the mainstream colleges, Charlton, this was a path to a better life, going to historical black college, getting an education, and also participating in athletes.
Yep.
They've maintained that long, rich heritage, Charlton. They just don't get the national recognition nor the financial support from the big-time boosters that are out there, Charlton, as far as advertising revenue.
Yeah, and we want to make sure we bring that attention because it's so important. Just like with Big C Sports, we'll bring it up. We don't wait for other people to. Number 6, Southern University. Number 7, Alabama A&M, followed by Arkansas Pine Bluff. Number 9, Grambling, which has a name as far as football that can match any university anywhere in the world. You say Grambling State, people know who they are. Number 10, Alabama State. Big C, your thoughts on Grambling? They really are, namesake-wise, you could say the Alabama of the HBCs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was a flagship program that people recognized, Charlton, because of the long lineage of the late Coach Robinson,
yeah,
who coached there and had more victories than any coach on the collegiate football level, Charlton. And he turned out so many fine men, not just the ones who participated in the NFL, Charlton, but those who participated in his program. He taught them about character and being men first, Charlton, before being an athlete.
Yeah, that's so true. So I really just appreciate paying attention to the HBCs and giving those players what they call giving some love, Big C, some attention. Hopefully people will pay attention to those programs as well. Big C's college football, I love getting Big C's thoughts. Everybody has their opinion. We definitely have ours. Tonight, some Pac-12 action. The University of Washington Huskies, they're out of Pac-12 North Chase anyway, it seems. They're 5-4 in the season. They're playing at Oregon State, which is 4-4 on the season. It's a 10:30 kickoff on Fox Sports 1. Artificial surface, and Washington is favored by 9.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Washington could go into this game sleeping, Charlton, after that tough loss they had against Utah last week. And you got to realize Oregon State scored over 50 points last week. So they've gotten things right up there in Beaverland, Charlton. So those Huskies might want to not look beyond this game.
Yeah, if you're a Husky, I'm sure a Husky could eat a Beaver, but I don't know. They don't want to overlook them on the football field. Going into Saturday, everybody is talking about college football. And before I even get into it, I want to make sure, because we always say that sports and politics, it mixes. It's what brings people together. Even POTUS allegedly will be at the LSU and then Alabama football game because he wants to be involved in the sports world too. So for all the dumb guys that say we don't want to talk politics and we only want to give you the score and who won the game and who's bigger, stronger, and faster, what do you say when the president, and he's not the first one, is so big he'll go and see the game even though he may be doing it for votes, Big C? Presidents have always followed sports in this, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the reason why the president is going to go to the game in Alabama is because he won Tuscaloosa County by 20% in the last presidential election.
Yeah.
And then the showing he had during the World Series, Charlton, he wants to go to a place where he feels that he won't be booed. And he feels going into Alabama, we know that Alabama's been a red state for a long time. It's still one of the Jim Crow states. And a lot of the politicians have run on racial epithets down there, and so he feels at home in Alabama. And so that's the reason why he's going to the game. It would be amazing that two things that could occur. There's going to be 103,000 people in Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Alabama, if they lose the game, I think the direction that they'll look at him, they'll look at the president saying he was bad luck. But if he gets booed in Alabama, Charlton, he doesn't stand a chance as far as being reelected.
Well, that's funny also. He was even, okay, now this is so funny. I really want my sports brethren all over the universe to listen to this statement. POTUS was also at a UFC fight last weekend, Big C. Now, Giuliani said he likes to see people on their knees and all that stuff begging. I don't know if any other president in our country has gone to a UFC fight, at least out in public. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he got booed at that USC fight in New York, Charlton, so he's trying to find an arena where people will cheer for him.
Yeah.
One of the things a lot of the public doesn't understand is that when they see the president in these rallies and everybody wearing the MAGA hats and the T-shirts, those people are paid $15 an hour to be at those rallies.
Yeah.
They're not in there just because they want to show up. They are actually paid to attend those rallies. So they are paid to cheer for this president and everything that he says.
Yeah, that's amazing. So everywhere you go, people love sports and politics. It all makes sense. If you read, it makes sense. If you don't read, I understand. I want to get into college football, Big C's thoughts. Saturday, we have Maryland, and Maryland started the season so promising, Big C, but right now they're only 3-4. They're at Ohio State, and you think about Ohio State. Actually, Maryland's 3-6. Ohio State is 8-0. That's a noontime kickoff on Fox Sports. Artificial surface, and the Buckeyes are favored by 42.5. You wouldn't have thought this as you saw Maryland win in the first week, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if you look at Maryland, they're living up to their namesakes, the Terrapins.
Yeah.
And we know how slow turtles are. Ohio State will just run away with this one.
Well, a Buckeye is a nut. I wonder if a Terrapin can crack a nut. Another big game, and it must feel like they're just not getting respect, and everybody talks about respect. The late Ronnie Dangerfield can't get any respect, Big C. But you have Penn State. They're ranked number 5 in the country. They're at number 13, Minnesota. They're ranked. Now listen, both teams are undefeated. They're both 8-0. It's a noontime kickoff on ABC Sports, artificial surface. And Penn State is favored by 6.5 on the road at Minnesota, also undefeated. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in my mind, Charlton, to me, this is the biggest game of the day when you think about these two Big Ten combatants.
Yeah.
You have two undefeated teams, Penn State and Minnesota. Minnesota for the first time since 1941. We're talking about World War II as we've constantly giving homage to our veterans of the military. Not since World War II has Minnesota been undefeated. Their team has flown under the radar. There's 6 teams with 2 losses. We make that 7 teams with 2 losses, ranked ahead of Minnesota in the national polls, Charlton. P.J. Flick and his group up there in Minneapolis are not getting any love. The plus that they have, Charlton, playing at home in Minneapolis this time of the year, it could be 20 degrees. So I see that as an advantage for Minnesota playing at home. They play on turf all the time. Penn State plays on grass. When you come in with that underdog mentality that Minnesota's going to have in this team, I know Coach Franklin has done a tremendous job at Penn State. But when I look at what P.J. Flick has done at Minnesota in the short 3 years that he's been there, Charlton, to turn this program around from the abyss to have them ranked nationally and undefeated at this juncture of the season, to me, this is the biggest game of the day. Everybody will talk about LSU and Alabama, but don't discount the underdogs. Penn State is ranked in the top 4 right now. If Minnesota knocks off Penn State, shouldn't they move up to at least number 6 in the country, Charlton?
You would think so, because they would have a nice resume going into it. I know Clemson hopes that it happens, but we'll see what happens in that game. Also, if we go deep into the heart of Texas, number 10, Baylor University, Big C, they're 8-0 on the season. They're playing at TCU, which is 4-4. That's a 12 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports 1. It's a grass surface, and then Baylor's favored by 2.5. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Baylor is trying to win the state of Texas, Charlton. They've knocked off everybody thus far. TCU has disappointed me. Just a couple of weeks ago, they knocked off Texas at home, and I thought that they had gotten on the right path. They turned right around the next week and lay an egg and get beat again against Oklahoma State. But, you know, Baylor has to keep winning if they have any outside chance, and I think it's really an outside chance that the bowl committee would vote Baylor in, but they will be in a New Year's Day big-time bowl game.
Yeah, they definitely will. We talked about earlier Deion Sanders, Florida State. It's not a bad thought. It's not like he would be the least qualified coach in college football. There's a lot of programs that haven't even won 2 games, Big C. Florida State 4-5 at Boston College, 5-4. ACC Network has that game. It's a noontime kickoff, artificial surface. And if all this talk, you know, Boston College is favored by 2.5. I think if you get a big name to come down at Florida State, maybe he could be an offensive coordinator or whatever he could be, but I don't think it's a bad move at all, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when I look at Florida State is just 2 games away from bowl eligibility, which they could easily qualify.
Yeah.
Florida State gets to a bowl, and you talk about firing Willie Taggart before the season is over. How does that weigh on the athletic director at Florida State?
Yeah.
But, when all the talk about Deion Sanders, there's still 2 other coaches down in Florida if they don't look at Deion seriously about giving him this job. Josh Heupel down at UCF,
Yeah.
I think would be a tremendous coach if they brought him in. Former Oklahoma quarterback. He was an offensive coordinator when UCF went undefeated with Scott Frost as the head coach. Not only that, Lane Kiffin is down at Florida International. So if you're looking at making a splash of guys who have played on big-time stages, Charlton, Lane Kiffin and Josh Heupel are right there in the state if you don't want to go out and bring Deion in.
I like Lane Kiffin. He's been a part of the SEC out there recruiting when he was down there with the Volunteers. Not a bad choice, Big C. I want to get into the last game that I want to talk about last. I want to just get into number 22, Kansas State, that's really smelling themselves. Them good old boys are 6-2. They're at Texas. Texas is 5-3. That's a 3:30 kickoff on ESPN, artificial surface. And Texas is favored by 6.5. If Kansas State can knock off Oklahoma and Texas, that would be huge for their program. Your thoughts?
Well, Kansas State has done a lot since Snyder retired, Charlton. They brought in the coach who had coached at North Dakota State and won several Division II national titles.
Yeah.
Kansas State has a very solid program. Tom Herman is sitting around wondering what has he gotten himself into down in Texas.
Yeah.
Everybody thought he was going to be the savior. He was the big-time hire, brought him over from the University of Houston. He hasn't had the success. When you look at him right now, his records are really no better than what Charlie Strong had while he was at Texas.
That's very good, true. Out on the West Coast, down in the desert, Big C, you have Southern California, 5-4. We know they have a new athletic director, maybe looking for another head coach, too. They're at Arizona State. That is 5-3 on the season. A 3:30 kickoff from the desert on ABC Sports. It's a grass surface, and when you look at the line on that game, Arizona State's favored by 1.5. I mean, that puts a lot more pressure on Helton. I think he's out of there anyway. It's just a matter of time whether they win or lose. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at Arizona State. Herm Edwards had them in the top 25 at one point, Charlton, after that miraculous win in Michigan State. But they've sort of gone on the skids since then, Charlton, and they need to find a way to right the ship. They're 5-3. They're 1 game away from being bowl eligible. The situation at USC is fluid. Who knows what's going to happen with Clay Helton? They still got to play out the string.
Yeah, you talked about coaches that might be available for Florida State. Well, Kiffin, I think he has some Trojan influence also, Big C. It wouldn't hurt to come back to the West Coast. Also, number 18, Iowa. Them good old boys are 6-2. They're number 16, Wisconsin, also 6-2. These are 2 programs that were everybody's talk in the first 4 weeks of the season. It's a 4 o'clock kickoff on Fox Sports. Artificial surface, and Wisconsin's favorite by 8.5, but I don't know if I trust them anymore. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at these 2 teams, Charlton, they're both in contention for the Big Ten East Championship, and they both still have to play Penn State in Minnesota, so the winner of this game still is not out of the Big Ten title race.
Another game that you really got to pay attention to, especially if you're Georgia. You have Missouri coming to town. They're 5-3. They're at number 6, Georgia. And Georgia's only, they're 7-1, only had 1 hiccup on the season, and that's a 7 o'clock kickoff ESPN, and it's on grass surface, and Georgia's favored by 17.5. But that team from Missouri, they can move the ball. I don't think they'll win, but you got to not overlook them, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Missouri was 5-1 just 2 weeks ago, Charlton. They've had 2 successive losses, and they're facing a red-hot Georgia team who is coming off an emotional win against the University of Florida down in Jacksonville last week, Charlton. I like Georgia in this game and the momentum that they have coming out of the world's largest cocktail party.
We have Fresno State in the West Coast. They're at home versus 4-4 Utah State. The Bulldogs are also at 4-4. Something have to give. That's a 7 o'clock kickoff at Bulldog Stadium. Comcast, actually CBS Sports Network has that game. Artificial surface, and the Bulldogs are favored by 5.5. We have a game that you always got to mention just for the name of it. Number 15, Notre Dame. They're 6-2. They're at 4-4 Duke. I remember Duke played Alabama to start the season for the Crimson Tide, so we'll see how those 2 teams compare. 7:30 kickoff on the ACC network. Grass surface, Notre Dame's favored by 7.5. And will they stop licking their wounds? They just got it easy. They got to come from behind win last week against Virginia Tech. Are they going to overlook Duke, Big C? Your thoughts?
I don't think they'll overlook Duke. Notre Dame has been kind of lackluster offensively the past couple of games, but Duke is in the doldrums also, so Notre Dame will win this by double digits.
A team that has to be upset, and if you look at Iowa State, they're 5-3 at number 8 Oklahoma. They're 7-1. Only one hiccup to Kansas State. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Fox East Coast time on grass surface. And the Sooners are favored by 14.5, but they got to be kicking themselves that they slept in the first half of the Kansas State game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a game that the Sooners struggled in last year, Charlton. They had to come from behind in the fourth quarter to overtake Iowa State. Iowa State is one of those solid running teams, just like Kansas State was. So the Sooners can't go in there sleeping and getting off to a slow start against them.
Very good point. Nevada 5-4 at number 24 San Diego State 7-1. That's a 10:30 kickoff on ESPN2 grass surface. San Diego State's favored by 17.5. They still have football down in San Diego. I want to go to the big game that a lot of people are talking about. It's so big, even POTUS is going there stomping for votes, Big C. Number 2 LSU 8-0 at number 1 Alabama 8-0. It's a 3:30 kickoff on CBS Sports. It's a grass surface. Now, Alabama's favored by 6.5 for them good old boys from LSU. And I know if you look at Tua, I think if Tua plays well, Alabama's going to be Alabama. If Tua doesn't play well, then LSU might get the first upset they've had in many, many moons down in Tuscaloosa. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if it would be an upset on either side, Charlton, whichever team wins this game. This is the first time that they've both met at 1-2 in 8 years. 8 years ago, these two teams met and they were ranked 1 and 2 in the country.
Yeah.
But when I look at it from Alabama's perspective, Charlton, this is a game that you can actually call limping for Tua.
Yeah.
Tua is not going to be 100% in this game, and so I don't even know if he's 90. I would rate him at 85% going into this game, but it's so imperative that Alabama has a full complement of players that Nick Saban is going to play this young man regardless.
Yeah.
And I think his emotion drives him as much as anything as far as Tua's concerned, wanting to compete in this game, Charlton, and not being there for his teammates.
Yeah.
But when I look at what LSU brings to this game, they bring a quarterback. This is a quarterback. The last two games that Alabama faced a quarterback that has been playing at the level of Joe Burrow, they were eaten up in the last 6 quarters that they played.
Yeah.
If you think about the playoff game down in Florida last year against the University of Oklahoma, Kyler Murray lit them up in the second half of that game, actually outscored them 33-8 in the second half. Then when you saw the national championship game against Clemson, Trevor Lawrence had a field day against his Alabama team, and people were saying, well, Tua just had a bad day. No, Alabama got their butts whipped in that game. That's all that was.
That's all that was.
Because what Clemson did was took the tape from what Oklahoma had did to them in the second half and implemented that in their offense. If you look at where Joe Burrow is, the most efficient quarterback in college football this year, completing 79% of his passes. I understand Alabama has great defense,
right,
but you got to give credit where credit is due, and that's that LSU offense. You're not having 29 touchdown passes and completing 79% of your passes just on luck alone, Charlton.
Yeah, it's a great environment. When you say sports and politics don't mix, we've seen politicians, presidents go to a lot of sporting venues, and I love, irrespective of who people like, Republican, Democrat, this is Veterans Day for Americans, Big C. It's just great that so much is going on in the sports world that can really galvanize people. Should we pay players? Yes. Should we have presidents involved in sports? Of course. And people should be able to talk about it without saying that they're out of their lane. I really love the environment that you have down in the South. I'm sure there's a lot of churches that go to church service even on Saturday. I'm sure they may rearrange their schedule for this game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody in the South, Charlton, is going to reschedule their schedules for this game. This is all that everybody's talked about in the South, and everybody in the South realizes how big football is. It is a religion within itself. It's as big as the church is, Charlton.
Yeah.
People pray about their football in the South.
Yeah.
They don't worry about going to the beach or on a picnic on Saturday like they do out on the West Coast, Charlton. They find themselves a way to find a football stadium somewhere.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I hope that people have a good time. Tailgate, have fun, but always stay safe. Don't let anyone drink and drive, but really have a good time at that game. We're going to come up on what's called the Big C timeout. After we take the Big C timeout, we're going to come back and get Big C's thoughts heavy on football, NFL style, and maybe even some talk about the NBA. We'll take the Big C timeout, and we hope that you'll take it and come back with us. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all over the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com, the apps that I really love. And give them a try. Say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the growth we're having with Big C Sports. Also, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. And I really love this app called Alexa. Just go out and find it. I keep hearing it again. Other networks are saying it. Again, follow Big C Sports. Also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of other smart TVs. Big C, Oakland, California. Last night, the last time a primetime game will be played at the Coliseum. The Chargers were there, and the crowd was amazing. The Raiders had a late drive, and Derek Carr looked like Kenny Stabler sometimes, Big C. It wasn't a sea of hands, but they found a way to come from behind and beat the San Diego Chargers with a little bit of help from Phillip Rivers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if they beat the Chargers or Phillip Rivers is just not there any longer. What I saw was a very poor performance by Phillip Rivers, who just could not get the ball down the field. He could not even complete a pass in the fourth quarter.
No.
The Raiders are there to be had, but he completed as many passes to the Raiders as he did to his own players in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So when you look at where the Chargers were going into this game, an opportunity to stay in playoff contention, Phillip Rivers played them out of playoff contention last night, I feel.
Yeah.
This is a guy who is struggling right now to move the ball, Charlton. He has nothing on his passes, especially last night in Oakland. He just had nothing on the balls that he was trying to throw down the field. One of the things about Phillip Rivers, especially in the latter part of his career, Charlton, he has to throw the ball to spots on the field. He's not throwing receivers open. He's throwing it to a spot and hoping that the receivers get there. Unfortunately, last night, several defensive backs got there before his receivers.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs was tremendous for the Raiders offensively last night, Charlton. You know, he's already broke the Raiders' rookie rushing record, and he's now has 7 TDs on the ground rushing this season. So he's been a bright spot, and he's one of the recipients of that Khalil Mack trade that John Gruden made a couple of years ago, sending him to the Bears.
Yep.
Josh Jacobs is one of the players they got in return in that trade.
Yeah, I saw, and you've said it before, that Phillip Rivers just lost his moxie, and a lot of people, you can see it. He's yelling at people on the sideline. Well, he's the one that's giving the snap count, and oftentimes they would snap the ball with like 1 second left. I saw at least twice where I thought the officials let it go, and he snapped the ball with less. There was zeros on the clock, and they let him get the snap off anyway. And I just thought, what a great environment for Oakland, and especially for the last night game at the Coliseum. Thought it was done really well. The Raiders get the win, 26-24 over the Chargers. The Chargers fall to 4-6. And the Raiders, Big C, the Raiders improved to 5-4 in the season. I want to get into Big C's NFL thoughts coming up over this weekend, and there's a lot of games. Everybody has a lot of hope about who's going to get into the playoffs. And everybody right now is really deep in football thought. I want to go to a game that's not so big. I'll just mention the bye week first. The Broncos have a bye. The Eagles, they have a bye. The Jaguars have a bye. Patriots have a bye. Washington has a bye, and also the Texans. But the game that everybody wants to see in Chicago anyway, the Lions 3-4-1 at the Bears 3-5, is a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Bears are favored by 2.5, and everyone in the Windy City is hoping. They're hoping that the Bears will come out fighting. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they put the 2.5 out there because they want to be able to blame it on the kicker at the end of the game if Mitch Trubisky can't complete any passes down the field. You know, when I look at the game that Matthew Stafford played last week against the Raiders, over 400 yards passing. And we know that the Bears have had a lot of trouble with their defense getting pressure on opposing passes this year. And I think a lot of that comes from the mental breakdown because of what they haven't been able to do offensively. But Mitch Trubisky hasn't done anything to help himself. He's talked about the team needs to turn off all the televisions in the facility because of all the negative media talk. The way you silence the media is go out there and do what you're being paid to do. Throw some damn touchdown passes. Stop throwing interceptions. Complete a higher percentage. You can't win in the NFL completing 56% of your passes, Mitch Trubisky. You need to turn that number around and get it up to at least 68 if you want to complete some passes and win games. But you can't blame the media for your inept performances.
I'm telling you, Chicago, they had so much hope. They're missing field goals. I still think something's not right when you don't have the leadership and they don't believe in them. Another good game.
Well, think about this. They cut the field goal kicker last year because he missed the field goal in a playoff game. They blame the whole season on one kicker because he missed the field goal. How many receivers have Mitch Trubisky missed this year? Think about how many he missed the last game. How many points he has not scored. The Bears are not even averaging 2 touchdowns a game. So you going to blame the kicker for that?
Got to blame somebody, Big Z. But there's no blaming when you look at the Baltimore Ravens. They're 6-2. At the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals are 0-8. It's amazing you can play this far in the season after you get rid of Marvin Lewis and you said that would be your savior, that he couldn't help them win. They haven't won a game since Lewis left, Big Z. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Ravens are favored by 9.5. And I would not be surprised if they got to 10.5, Big Z. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking about Zach Taylor, the coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, they blame Marvin Lewis for the ineptitude of the team last year. He played Andy Dalton the first 8 games of the season. So now Zach Taylor benched Andy Dalton. So he's going to blame the first 8 losses on Andy Dalton. And now he's putting in Ryan Finley, the kid they drafted in the 4th round out of North Carolina State. And now he's giving himself an escape saying, well, I'm playing a rookie quarterback that has never played, so he's going to take his lump. So, you know, if we lose games, it's not on me, it's on the rookie backup quarterback. So he's buying himself some time. Baltimore will just roll in this game.
Blame it on the rookies. Big C, we have the Bills. They're 6-2 at the Cleveland Browns that are 2-6. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. Now the Browns are favored by 2.5. You're going to see 2 quarterbacks from a much ballyhooed, and one's doing okay in Buffalo. The other, maybe Baker Mayfield can get a win this weekend. Your thoughts?
Aren't the Browns favored in every game? Weren't the Browns favored to get to the Super Bowl because they had a great team on paper? The last thing, when you look at a piece of paper, Charlton, there's several things you can do to it. You can tear it. You can ball it up. If you got a match, you can burn it up. That's basically been the Cleveland Browns season. All 3 of those things wrapped into one. You know, there's things that when you become an adult that you're taught not to believe in, okay? You're taught not to believe in the Easter Bunny.
No, don't say that.
You're taught not to believe in the Tooth Fairy.
No.
And you're also taught not to believe in the Cleveland Browns.
I like the Easter Bunny, especially for the chocolate, Big Z. The Atlanta Falcons 1-7 at the New Orleans Saints. They're 7-1. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Saints, think about this. The Saints are favored by 11.5 over the mighty, at one time, Atlanta Falcons. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you look at professional games, Charlton, this is like a hate game. When you talk about 2 organizations that generally hate each other, I know years ago it used to be the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. Every time they got together, there was going to be a fight. There was going to be multiple personal foul penalties. That's the mindset of the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. Those 2 organizations generally hate each other. And you're going to see all that Who Dat Nation on its feet at an upheaval when the Falcons show up in town. And these birds don't stand a prayer.
They don't stand a prayer. Now everybody wants to run Devontae Freeman, Big C. Might be too late for that. The Giants are 2-7. Where's that big fat black cat? They need to keep him off the field, even though this is going to be, it's the same field, but they're the visiting team. They're 2-7. At the home team, the New York Jets 1-7. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Giants are favored by 2.5. You know, if you're favored by 2.5 over the Jets, that's not a lot of confidence. The Jets haven't been that good at all, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the only thing you can say about this game, Charlton, New York will win.
New York will win. Maybe. It might be a tie, Big C. Wouldn't that be something poetic justice? I want to go to the Arizona Cardinals. They're 3-5-1. At the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are 2-6. I really thought that Tampa would be a better team than Arizona, at least this year coming into the season, Big C. But a lot has changed, and it's amazing how that tide has changed down south. Number one is a 1 o'clock kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Buccaneers are favored by 4.5. And I don't know if they've point makers have seen them play lately. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Tampa, Charlton, they have a high-potency offense. They can put points on the scoreboard against anybody. They've done that several times this year. Matter of fact, they have the highest scoring game in the NFL this season. Well, the second highest game when they put 55 on the Rams out in Los Angeles. But also, James Winston has been a turnover machine.
Yeah.
I look at Arizona, and Kyler Murray has gotten progressively better each week. This game fits up well for both teams. Arizona doesn't have a defense. Tampa has a great offense. Kyler Murray is getting better offensively. Tampa proved they couldn't stop anybody late in the game against Seattle.
Who's going to have the better play at the quarterback spot, Murray or Winston? They were both first rounders, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, right now, at this point in his career, Murray's doing okay, but Winston had a better rookie season. When he first broke into the NFL, he passed for 4,000 yards as a rookie with Tampa.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see some flashes of that. Also, another big game is the Kansas City Chiefs at 6-3 at the Tennessee Titans. They're 4-5. That's a 1 o'clock kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Chiefs are favored by 6.5. The biggest question is, will Patrick Mahomes play, or will he stay rested, because they'll probably beat the team in Tennessee even without him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Mr. Mahomes will be in this game, Charlton. He's back 24 days after dislocating his knee. He will be back in the starting lineup. He will wear a brace. It might limit some of his mobility. I don't think they're going to want to run him much anyway. But they need him to get back in stride. They got Tyreek Hill back in the lineup, Charlton. That receiving core is getting healthy. They're going to get Fisher back at offensive tackle. This team is getting ready to make a playoff run. We saw Jones have an outstanding game on the defensive line against Minnesota.
Yeah.
When I look at the Titans, Tannehill is playing quarterback. And I know he's played decent, but he's still not an NFL caliber quarterback, Charlton. And Mike Vrabel is going to get a lesson from a team that he retired from.
Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing what happens there. Also, Derrick Henry only had 2 touches in the first half last week. Tennessee, they got to remember he's still on their team. The Dolphins, man, they got to be smart. They're 1-7. They're at the Indianapolis Colts that are 5-3. It's a 4:05 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on CBS Sports. And the Colts are favored by 9.5. I will say, even though the Dolphins had a win over the Jets, this is a team that I don't know if they were tanking or if they were just not finding their confidence. I wouldn't be surprised if they cover the point spread, depending on if they have a healthy quarterback in Indianapolis. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Jacoby Brissett should be playing for Indianapolis, and I praise the Miami Dolphins for what they did last week. Everybody's talking about they were tanking for Tua. We see that Tua is a vulnerable quarterback physically, Charlton.
Yep.
You're better off not having the first overall pick in the draft, taking a quarterback, because so much expectations are put on that young man. And so the Dolphins did themselves a great favor. I see the Dolphins still winning another 2 games this year.
I would not be surprised because they're also going to play the Jets again, Big C. I think they're going to play them again. And then you have another game. The Panthers, which might be the game of the weekend. The Panthers are 5-3 at the Packers 7-2. That's a 4:25 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. And the Packers are favored by 4.5 in that game. And I know a lot of people want to give the Packers a lot of credit, but I want to bring this thought up to everybody watching this game. If you look at McCaffrey, he needs 156 yards from scrimmage on Sunday against Green Bay to become the 4th player in NFL history with at least 1,400 yards through the team's first 9 games. And the Panthers star would join the great Jim Brown, 1,529 yards back in 1963. Also, Larry Brown, 1,405 yards in 1972, and the great O.J. Simpson, 1,518 yards in 1975. McCaffrey, he's really been the straw that stirred the stink down there for the Panthers. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, what has allowed McCaffrey to excel this year, Charlton, is the absence of Cam Newton in the backfield, because Cam carried the ball so many times, so he took running opportunities away from Christian McCaffrey. Kyle Allen has realized that he has to keep Christian McCaffrey as an integral part of this offense. And the offense has responded well to his exploits. And you think about the company that you spoke about him being able to become a part of, Jim Brown, Larry Brown, O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
All of those guys, Charlton, were tremendous football players during their era in the NFL. And now McCaffrey when we look at all the great backs that have played in the NFL, is only can be the fourth one to accomplish that feat Sunday against Green Bay if he gets 156 yards of total offense. And we saw the vulnerability of Green Bay's defense last week in San Diego.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought San Diego would – I mean, not San Diego, and it's always going to be San Diego in my mind.
The Lightning
Chargers. Chargers had a great showing against the Packers.
Yeah.
And that led you to believe that they would be a more formidable opponent last night in Oakland.
Yeah.
But they laid an egg, Charlton, and I don't know if a Charger can lay an egg, but they did. And so this is a tremendous opportunity for McCaffrey to enter the record books, and Kyle Allen will play a lot better than what Phillip Rivers did last night.
Yeah, and there's always talk about Aaron Rodgers, discount, double check, and you got Kyle Allen's a new kid on the block. Aaron Rodgers didn't seem to be everything that we thought he was against the LA Chargers, but in Green Bay it might be a different story. But one thing that always carries, no matter what the weather is, no matter how hot or cold it is, if you can run the ball, you have a chance to win in this league, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, running the ball is paramount in the NFL. I mean, even with all the great passes that we see in this game now, Charlton, they all still rely on a running game. As great as Patrick Mahomes is in Kansas City,
yeah,
he still relies on Williams and McCoy to run the football, Charlton. And Williams had an outstanding game last week against the Vikings, well over 100-yard rushes. We see Dalvin Cook, the top rusher in the NFL, Charlton. Teams that are winning, you look across the league, they have top running backs, Charlton, all in the top 10 rushing.
Yeah, and when you think about that, why I'm not so sold on Green Bay winning, and they should, the environment's there. Maybe they'll get some home cooking, eat a lot of cheesesteaks. If you can run, you can win. Carolina Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey, he leads the NFL with 1,244 yards from scrimmage and joins Pro Football Hall of Famer Jim Brown in 1963, Big C, as the only player to have at least 150 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown in 6 of the team's first 8 games. He really is running like he could be up for league MVP. He's not going to get it because they want to give it to a quarterback, but as running backs, I think he's the most valuable so far. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm not so sure that they will give it to a running back. It all depends on how many games Carolina wins. And when you think about it, to give it to a running back, and not only that, a white running back would be a real rarity in the NFL.
Yeah, well, sometimes, hey, POTUS became president. You never know. The LA Rams, what happened to the Rams? They used to be the talk of the town, especially Tinseltown. They're 5-3 on this season. They're at the Pittsburgh Steelers 4-4. That's a 4:25 kickoff, East Coast time Sunday on Fox Sports. The Rams go into Pittsburgh, favored by 3.5. I know the Steelers are feeling much better about themselves because Indianapolis missed a kick. West Coast teams going on the East Coast playing early games is not that good for the West Coast teams, but this game has moved back. It's a 4:25 kickoff East Coast time, so it's really like a 1:25 kickoff on the West Coast. That might help the Rams, but I don't really trust golf right now. Give me your feeling on this game, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I look at the Rams, and they're not much off the pace that they were last year. They ended up being a 13-3 team, Charlton. I see this team easily being able to be 7-1 on the second half of the season. The Rams are plagued by a lot of injuries in the first half of the season. Todd Gurley wasn't healthy. Robert Woods had been out of the lineup. They had to make some new adjustments in the secondary on defense. 2 new cornerbacks and a linebacker, Charlton. Clay Matthews has been out. He's going to return. There's no reason why in the second half of the season that the Rams can't go 7-1. Goff will have his full complement of offense after coming off the bye week. The Rams will hit their stride. I can see them ending up the season at 12-4.
Well, I'm looking forward to see some West Coast football. I'm telling you, it's coming down the stretch. We have the Vikings, they're 6-3, at the Cowboys 5-3. That's a big game in the NFC, Big C. It's an 8:20 kickoff East Coast time Sunday on NBC Sports. And the Cowboys are favored by 2.5 down in Jerry Jones' world. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a matchup against the 2 best running backs in the NFC.
Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. These 2 young men, Charlton, are electrifying. And as they go, their teams will go, Charlton. We know that both teams have very capable receivers. It's a matter of which one of your cousins is going to show up for the Minnesota Vikings to play quarterback in this game. We know that he only has 1 road win against a team with a winning record since he's been the quarterback in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Will he be able to make it to this week?
There'll be a lot of talk, or maybe avoidance of talk, about the Dak Prescott versus Kirk Cousins, Big C, because one guy's making a lot of money, and Prescott, they're saying your money's coming in the future. But as far as what we're going to see on Sunday, we're going to see a mobile quarterback for one team. I'm sure the Fats can figure out who that will be. We're also going to see guys that can stand in the pocket and throw. But if you need a run-play option, Big C, a run-pass option, only one team has that, and I wonder if we'll see that as it lines up against itself down in Texas. Does that make any sense, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I think even more so the Cowboys have to protect Prescott in this game. It's going to be very, important that he stays in the pocket. The Vikings have a tremendous defensive front. You don't want to put this young quarterback in harm's way, and you want to see how good he is throwing from the pocket. The gauge in this game, as we talked about gauge of free agencies, Charlton, yesterday, what the gauge is for their potential free agent contract would be in this coming year. This is the same thing you're looking at Dak Prescott. He is a free agent quarterback at the end of this season.
Yeah.
What's the gauge for Dak Prescott? We talked about Jared Goff money being guaranteed at $101 million. Your cousin's making $84 million guaranteed.
I want to make $84 million, Big C. A big game coming up on Monday night. It makes the West Coast. The West Coast has always been relevant with so many championship teams for NFL football. You have NBA basketball, Major League Baseball, of course, NHL hockey, and then college football and basketball as well, college baseball, track and field. A lot goes on the West Coast. We have a clash of two states. We have California with the San Francisco 49ers. They are undefeated on the season at 8-0, and they're at home. And flying in town will be the Seattle Seahawks out of the state of Washington, 7-2. It's an 8:15 kickoff East Coast time Monday on ESPN. And the 49ers are favored over Russell Wilson and the high-flying Seahawks by 5.5 down there at Levi Stadium. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, and I think that's a credible spread on the game, Charlton, because when I look at the Seahawks offense, they haven't won a game by more than 7 points all year, Charlton. So this is a team that has found ways to win. They haven't dominated anybody. And when you think about the two games they lost those games, Charlton, against teams that could run the ball. The New Orleans Saints with Alvin Kamara and the Baltimore Ravens with Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
They had running backs that were formidable on the ground. We know how strong the 49ers running game is. It didn't show up last week against Arizona, but they should be back. I mean, they have a three-headed monster in the backfield, Charlton, that can really move the ball on the ground. They're going to be playing on grass. That's not what the Seahawks are used to. They're used to playing on that turf up there in Seattle. We know that Doug Baldwin is a big game receiver for the Seahawks. T.J. Metcalf is coming into his own, but they got Josh Gordon last week from New England. They expect him to be in the lineup. So if you look at those three receivers, if they can get them all on the field at the same time, I don't see the 49ers secondary being able to hang with those big physical receivers that Seattle has.
Give me your thoughts on, everybody's talking about Bosa on the defensive side for the Niners and also Richard Sherman. Does he have any tendencies on Russell Wilson? If there's any tendencies, Sherman would have seen them when they played together in Seattle during their Super Bowl days. I don't know if that matters against a guy like Wilson. But if this game is a close game, then Seattle's shown the ability to pull out a close game. And this might be the best defense that the 49ers have seen, Big C, even though they are flying into San Francisco. Your thoughts?
Well, Seattle's going to play decent football. They know how to keep their team in the game, but they're vulnerable to quarterbacks who can light it up. Jimmy Garoppolo had his best game of the season last week in Arizona. Can he still play at that same pace? But one thing has to give with the 49ers. Either you're a throwing team or a running team. And when they're running, they don't want Garoppolo to take chances with the football. So it's a half dozen in one, half dozen in another. Can a player have tendencies on a former teammate? No, I don't think so, because the game, you don't have time to sit up and worry about what Russell Wilson is doing, because you're only playing one position on the defense. That's a cornerback. You're removed away from the offense. A quarterback can take any cornerback out of the game anytime they want. They just don't have to throw at them.
Yeah, I look forward to it. It's a great week for football. We have Big C's Friday Night Lights. We have college football. We previewed the HBC top 10 programs. And then the Blue Bloods with college football. A lot of good old boys looking forward to the Minnesota at home versus Penn State. Also Alabama at home versus LSU. And then NFL is always strong. I want to just touch real quick into some college basketball and then finish with some NBA. For college basketball this weekend, we have number 3 Kansas. They're 0-1 set for home opener against University of North Carolina, Greensboro. The Spartans are 1-0. Number 7 Maryland, they're 1-0 at home. They host Rhode Island on the college scene. That's 1-0. That's a big non-conference title tilt on Saturday. And on the West Coast, number 8 Gonzaga, they're 1-0. They're going to welcome in Arkansas Pine Bluff. The Bulldogs are 1-0. And then number 13 Texas Tech, Big C, they're 1-0. They're ready for Bethune-Cookman coming in at 1-0. Number 15 Oregon 1-0 set for Boise State at 1-0 on a big West Coast clash. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's great to see college basketball in full swing going along with college football, but you wonder, when will the student body have a chance to go to class? They got to go to the basketball game and the football games on consecutive nights.
Yeah, they got to do that too. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to just say you can also follow us on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a lot of other smart TVs all over the universe, especially for this Veterans Day weekend. I want to get Big C's NBA basketball. There's not a big schedule in town, but we do have Detroit at Indiana, Washington at home versus Cleveland, Orlando is at home versus Memphis, Sacramento's at Atlanta, and then Golden State, they're on the road at Minnesota. Give me your thoughts on those first games. Which ones, if any, I don't think it's going to get you off the remote control with the Alabama and LSU coming up. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what I'm looking at early in the year with some of these NBA arenas, Charlton, is not a large attendance. I mean, you look around and there's a lot of empty seats. People are complaining about players not playing and taking load management, and so it's becoming disgruntled. Look at a college game, Charlton. These players go out and play their hearts out every night trying to get to the next level.
Yeah, they're trying to get to the next level, and I think a lot of fans appreciate it too. Okay, also on the schedule, Dallas is at home versus the New York Knicks. Milwaukee's on the road at Utah, might be the game of the night. Philadelphia, they're at Denver. That might even surpass the game of the night. I think those are the top 2 games coming up, Philadelphia at Denver. Portland at home versus Brooklyn. And then the LA Lakers will entertain the Miami Heat. I'm looking forward to seeing if Giannis can carry his thing up into Utah. But also, will Philadelphia have a chance to get over in Mile High where the air's a little bit thin? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Philadelphia's got the best team in the Eastern Division right now, Charlton, and Denver's been struggling.
Well, I'm looking forward to NBA and basketball. I know a lot of people talk about the load and don't want to play players on certain games. How about skip the bad games? At least skip the game when you're on the road, not at home. Don't do that to your home fans. Big C, Veterans Day, my thoughts again. If you love me, feed my sheep. We love saying that we love our veterans. All the branches of the military, they're serving to protect us right now as we speak, Big C. They don't have the chance to come home and get home cooking. They got to do it and make out the best way they can. Give me your thoughts again on what you're most grateful for on Veterans Day weekend coming up. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think with our 5 branches of the military is something that they're active every day. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard are our 5 active branches of the military. They go to work every day, Charlton, to serve one purpose. That's for the protection of the citizens of the United States.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody needs to be thankful for. Don't get up and think about the troubles that you might be going through or how you're going to make something better for yourself. Think about how they make life better for you every day as an American citizen.
They make life better every day. We're so grateful. Happy Veterans Day coming up. Even though it's Monday, we're celebrating it also. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, this is one of the biggest college football weekends of the year. We came out with the first college football player ranking, Charlton, over the week. Ironically, there's going to be two teams in that ranking, Charlton, that lose this weekend. Going to be the first time in the history of the ranking that occurs.
It's amazing. There's so much to be grateful for. Grateful for this great country, grateful for our military, and you can also be grateful too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, that's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.